نعملخ مريم مليف طيبوثة نارا عماخ مريخات المشي وموريخ بيت خرسريشو ناط مريم يلف آلها صلح لابين حطاهي هاشا وشاق الموثين آمين.
So I'm Father Jens from Dermamusa community. Dermamusa is a monastery 100 kilometers away from Damascus towards the north. It is a community which is which was founded by Father Paolo Dall'Olio and which is working for interreligious harmony, let's say, for harmony building between Christians and Muslims. Our community was asked in 2010 by the bishop of that time, His Excellency Luis Sacco, who is now the Patriarch of the Chaldean Church, to open a house in Suleymaniyah for preparing, like he said it once to me privately, the presence of Christians in Kurdistan, if this would be his Christians, the traditional ones, or others, as we have now many foreigners, for example. This he said, I don't know. Yeah, and so I was sent by our community 2011 in autumn, after a time of discernment, if we can do that, because as we are a very small community, we are 10 monks and nuns, and yeah, every new house is of course a weight. Then, but since we have been in a certain difficulty in Syria to do our work, let's say on a more public plane, we decided that we want to go to Kurdistan, where many things are possible on the dialogue, for dialogue. So the name, we have two names in fact, but I will use the easier one. This Deir Mar Musa is the community of Deir Mar Musa, which is just a place. Deir Mar Musa is the monastery of Saint Moses. In fact, the full name is Deir Mar Musa al-Habashi, the Moses the Ethiopian. So it's not Moses the prophet, but it's a local saint which is supposed to be from Ethiopia. Our founder, in fact, well, the monastery is very old; it's from the 6th century, but the community died, let's say, died out in the time 1832, more or less. A year for more and a year less, we don't know exactly. And then Father Paolo Dall'Olio came 1982 to Dermamusa, and for spiritual exercise as a student as a scholastic of the Jesuits, and he felt that this place could become alive again if there is a community which is praying, which works manually and has a very open hospitality. All that in the frame of the love of God for Islam. This is also the big theme of Father Paolo. He felt already in his novitiate that Islam will be a big question, and is a big question for Christianity, and he wanted to become near of Islam. He wanted to understand the spiritual experience of Islam, and then also he wanted to work for the harmony between both religions. Then very soon people came. He started in 1984 then to restore the ruin of Dermamusa, because it was ruined. There have been no roofs, there have been no floors, and he started to work for rebuilding this very beautiful monastery, and wild monastery also, and just in a valley, in a canyon, you can say, all alone, standing there on a rock, and so it's very impressive if you see it the first time. And then people came, like Father Jacques Murat, and then Sister Huda, then me. Yeah, and the community then slowly came. It is of course not an easy, let's say, not a common. No vocation is easy, but not a common vocation, and we're quite aware that probably we will stay very small. We have both of our co-founders have been kidnapped. Father Paolo Dall'Olio since 2013, in fact, and he's still in custody. In fact, we don't know, we don't have a proof of life. We have also not a proof of his death. We are quite sure if he would be dead or if he would have died in the custody of the Islamic State, then this would have been somehow used in the media of the Islamic State, because they are very good in doing that. And then we have also Father Jacques Murat, who was abducted last year in the spring, and then he was brought to Raqqa, was asked to change religion and so, sometimes very harshly, and who was then, when ISIS invaded Qaryatain, the village where the monastery of Deir Mar is, and of which Father Jacques was either the responsible of the monastery, and in the same moment he was the parish priest of Qaryatain. When they took Qaryatain, they deported also all the remaining Christians there towards Palmyra. So he was reunited with this group of people. There have been 250 persons. And then there was, over a time, it was quite a long time, they have been convinced, forced were probably the best way to say, to sign a contract of dhimmi. Well, this is a contract of protection, which has a very old story in Islam, which the interpretation of the Islamic State is the Christians have the right to live among the Muslims. That's something interesting, because others don't have this right, like the Yazidi and Muslims, which don't agree with the Islamic State. So they can be killed, they can be sent in slavery. But the Christians, they have some fundamental rights. But in fact, the contract of dhimmi is a very bad situation, in fact. It's a very repressing contract. You are not allowed to pray in public. Churches, you can't conduct normal church functions. It's very restrictive, always in the interpretation of Islamic State. Or we have always to keep this in mind, that the Islamic State has its own interpretation of the history. Then, after this, the community of the parish of Caryatane, or what's remaining of the parish of Caryatane, was brought back to Caryatane, and then after, people of the Muslim community around Caryatane and in Caryatane would help the Christians to go out of Caryatane, out of the influence of the Islamic State. And this action gives me very much hope for Syria, because it shows that there is still the local solidarity between neighbors, between Muslims and Christians, which was the big fame of Syria, is still around. And I think this is a very good example to build on for the new society, which one day we have to rebuild in Syria. Father Jacques was a symbol, the symbolic person of the unity of this village. He, in an earlier stage of the civil war, he had up to 5,000 refugees in the monastery, where the monastery was declared by the rebels, which have not been Islamic State, or we are before the Islamic State there, by the rebels and by the government, neutral ground, and also ground of non-combat. So these 5,000 people have been on the ground of the monastery, and of course this testimony was also one of the reasons of the esteem of the local population for Father Jacques. The Christian problem in Iraq is a small problem. We have 2 million of refugees in Kurdistan. So, little geographical information. We have Iraq, and in Iraq we have a region. Iraq is divided in regions and in provinces. So the region of Kurdistan has a special status by constitution, which it now wants to develop into independence. So Kurdistan is mainly inhabited by the Kurdish people, which has its own language, an own history, and which are Sunni Muslims, as Daesh, as Islamic State, as many people in Syria. So, and as most of the refugees. The Christian refugees are around 150,000. So we have 2 million and we have 150,000. So Christian problem is a relatively small problem. It is terrible for each person, for each family, to lose everything, to be obliged to flee or just with your big car sometimes, but not with your luggage, with your clothes. But it is equally and maybe even worse to flee from people from your own community. I think what happens at the moment in Syria and in Iraq is only comparable with the war, First World War, when Austria and Italy made a very big war, or Spain, or the Civil War of Spain. I think this is more or less the same feeling of also for fleeing from one part of the other in your own country. 2014, the refugees started to flow into Kurdistan. The Christians have, I say always, the automatic to go directly to the Christian community to ask for help, because there is a long-standing tradition of help organizations, of Caritas, and so there is something very natural in the Christian community to go, if there is need, to go first into the church and to ask for help, which was a big advantage for all the churches and all for the Christian community, because very soon we didn't know exactly how many people there are in Erbil, in Dohog, and in Suleymaniyah. And we could give this to the help organizations and say, look, we have that and that people, we need that, we need some food, we need blankets, we need, whatever is needed. And the help organizations have been happy because they didn't have exact numbers. For other communities, it was not the same, because this kind of going directly to the mosque, there is not such a structure in this case. There are help structures in Islam, for example, but they are much more on individual basis, or so you would not automatically go to the imam to be registered, and so that's this was a big advantage for the Christians, and in fact I think they have been one of the first who had the help from the big help organizations in the world. Well, in the beginning there was just the need of shelter, food, hygiene. Or those are the three things you have to think in a moment, in a situation like that. And that's in fact we have in the monastery. We sheltered them in the monastery and in our living houses of the community. And then, in a half a week later, we asked some of the Christians, which had still houses around the monastery, because the monastery is the old parish church of Suleymaniyah, and it was the Christian quarter before. We asked them, your old houses, can we use them? And they gave it free of charge, and still free of charge since 2 years. And we started to place families there. In the parish church, in the new parish church, there have been 300 families altogether. In the catechism halls and in the hall of the thing. So it was very much very crowded there. And so in the first step we helped them for the really basic things. But of course after 1 month, after 2 months, you have to do also something else. So we started a primary school for the kids. A school is something a little bit magic, because you involve the whole family with that. Or in the morning, the mother or the father has to go up to prepare the kids to go to school, to wash him, and so. And it gives a structure in the life of the refugees, because life of refugee, especially in that moment, was just waiting. Nora. Because the generals of Iraq said, well, in 2 months we take back Mosul. It didn't happen. And so we had then to think more long term, and we had also to think about a better accommodation. In the very start, we divided men and women to be able to put more people or with families you need more space, and so if you have divided more men and women, you can squeeze a little bit more in the rooms available. But then we had to rearrange the whole organization that the families could stay together, because after 2 months you have to put the families together. That doesn't work otherwise. So we had the school. Then in spring we have been ready to provide on the one side Kurdish courses for the Christians first, which was aimed that they can communicate in the market, and so that, because another problem of Suleymaniyah is you speak Kurdish there, not Arabic, like most of like the Christians, but Kurdish, and so we thought to help them at least to communicate a little bit in the market. Nearly all the middle-aged people of my age speak still Arabic in Suleymaniyah, but the younger not anymore very well. So yeah, the idea was to integrate them a little bit, to help them also in a second step that they can find some jobs during this time. And in fact, the ones who had good formation or a craft, they found very, very early some work. Then, yeah, and then there was a second one. There was an English school who offered me altogether 80 places for English with native professor, native speaker English. So this was also very generous of them, and so I could also provide some English courses, either just to widen the culture, and also to improve the possibility for them to find a job. Well, the Unite will be probably at Judgment Day, but it will not. We are working for the harmony between the two religions. We are working for more knowledge of one of the other. We are working. I think we should start to work also against the forgetting of history, because one of the big and very shocking things is that not only the Islamic State is destroying history, like graves of important Muslim teachers and some churches, if they are relevant for the Muslims. But also in the normal Iraq, let's say, in Kurdistan, there is a shocking unawareness about the own history there, at the Christians and at the Muslims. So many of the old cities, old mosques, old churches are just changed for a new one. And we lose the graves, we lose the inscriptions, we lose many informations of history, and so probably there should be an initiative to preserve history in Iraq, like for example the Dominican father Najib is doing in Erbil. He offers his services for digitalizing old manuscripts and then brings it back to his owner, but we have then at least a testimony in the internet. Well, there's not very much problem with Jesus Christ, with Islam, because he is very well renewed as and not even as a prophet, but something more than the prophet. He is the Messiah. He's the one who will come back on last day. I think it's not really necessary to enter in every discussion with an imam also into dogmatics. We have many things we can agree. I think that there are many moral issues where Christianity and Islam are on the same position, where they could work together. I would see, for example, an extreme thing where in fact at the moment in Islam is not very much reflection over it, but I think in the discussion about abortion, and so there is many points where Islamic teaching is agreeing with Christian teaching. So there is many points to also in many places we meet. She's very much loved. A proof is in Syria. The big Marial sanctuaries like St. Naya has been always visited by many Muslims, and they asked her for intercession. There's a big respect to Mary, and there have been also in Kirkuk meetings between the local bishop, at that time Louis Sacco, and the sheikhs, where they had like a little conference on the Assumption of on the day of Assumption in August. There was always a meeting between them, and everybody would bring something out of his tradition about Mary or Mariam, or that, and it's very there is a very sweet recognition in traditional Islam. So what we have in ISIS is not traditional Islam. The real traditional Islam is knowing his own history, and there is this respect. And there also a possibility to work together, and of course we have then to avoid to give the impression that we have an adoration of Mary, but we have, well, in the prayer. In the prayer and in the scriptures. For me, sometimes it's only the Mass, but then being together also. We have now a very nice movement of kids that they want to be all to serve during the Mass, even on a normal day. And so I asked them to think a little bit about the text and to work, and sometimes there are some nice things coming out of that, we have then, this is the thinking about the Word of the God is also very important. Well, at the moment, the testimony of Father Jacques Murat, who was freed by Muslims, is for me very strong. I mean, he was urged to change his belief, and he didn't. I wouldn't say he's one of the confessors, but he's a little confessor. And so for me it's very nice to see how much he still is loving his country as nation, as Syria, and all its population. Not only the Christians, not only some past, but really loving the whole of his country. I think I would like to ask you to pray at the moment for the Middle East, to pray especially for the whole population, for the Muslims and for the Christians, and especially for the city of Mosul, for the both cities of Mosul and of Aleppo. Because these people there, even there are no Christians anymore in the fighting zone, or very few, these persons, which are probably more or less 2 million altogether, are in permanent danger and in one of the worst wars we had since World War II. And so I really ask you for prayers, and also for prayer that we can start with the work of reconciliation.